for topic two, for the nerdy topic of today's episode, one of the things that I want to talk about was Star Trek. Recently, I've been really getting back into Star Trek, and I've been trying to figure out why. Um, One of the things I've been doing recently is I've been reading a lot of, as you can see on the video, I've been reading a lot of Star Trek books lately and getting back into the Star Trek expanded universe, as it were, because there's actually a very, very, very deep Star Trek continuity set after all the movies. And going into this, like, there's like 5 or 6 concurrently running series that all cross over with each other and things like that. It's very much very comic booky in that sort of expanded universe sense. And I'm getting really back into it and trying to figure out why I've been really getting back into Star Trek lately and kind of moving away from comics for a little while. And I know part of it is I have Asperger's, so I focus on things really specifically, and once I get into them, I get into them really, really intensely and move away from other things. And so my interest has been focused back on Star Trek recently. But usually there is a reason why I've been trending towards one thing or another. And I've always loved Star Trek since I was a little kid. It was probably outside of Lord of the Rings, which was my first foray into sci-fi fantasy worlds. Star Trek was really the thing that inspired me and really got me to where I am today and got me into the field that I'm working in, which is entertainment and cinema. And so I've been wondering why I've been getting back into it recently. And I think, honestly, it's both for personal reasons and for sort of worldwide, general things going on in the world reasons. And I kind of wanted to explore that for a minute with you. So first things first, what I wanted to talk about was what my history with Star Trek is. Like I said, I sort of got into fantasy and science fiction through Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit specifically. That's why I have a Hobbit tattoo on my shoulder. But very quickly after that, my dad had an audiobook of Star Trek Nemesis, and of the last Star Trek The Next Generation movie, and I started listening to that audiobook over and over and over again, and eventually started getting into finding all this other Star Trek stuff, all the Star Trek books, all the Star Trek movies, all the Star Trek TV shows, and I got really, really into them. It became my favorite show of all time, just that general series, and I knew everything about it. It actually got to the point where I walked downstairs one day, and my dad had an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation on, and all I saw was a shuttlecraft flying by the screen, and I instantly knew, oh, that's Parallels. That's the episode Parallels from Season 5 of Star Trek The Next Generation. I don't know if that's actually it anymore, but I knew exactly what that episode was just from literally a special effects shot. And that's how deep into Star Trek I got. And I used to, they only used to have Star Trek on reruns for a lot of the specific shows, like Voyager and Deep Space Nine. And they only aired, in my area, they only aired Star Trek Voyager at midnight on weekdays. And my bedtime was way, way before then, so I would actually sneak downstairs on school nights to watch Star Trek Voyager from midnight to 1 in the morning, and pretty much caught the entire series that way. So Star Trek was a big part of my life. And one of the reasons that I really enjoyed Star Trek was that it was about a world that was better, was something that we as humans were aiming towards, were working towards. That Star Trek made me feel that the betterment of humanity was not only probable but was inevitable. That at the end of the day, we were going to be better human beings. We were always going to grow and become better than ourselves, and we're working towards a society that didn't believe in ostracizing people, that put diversity as an important factor, that loved hearing different ideas and loved hearing different points of view rather than singular points of view, that didn't worry about money, didn't worry about government and things like that. It really just said that the things that that human nature wasn't greed, that human nature wasn't hatred or anger or violence, but that human nature was actually compassion and caring and empathy, that those were the things that actually define us as human beings, and that those were the qualities that would always win out, no matter what. That no matter how difficult or hard things got, human nature was good, and that would eventually win the day. And that's really why I came to love Star Trek, and why I loved that form of storytelling. I used to write a Star Trek fan fiction series, so don't go looking that up. It's called Star Trek Mirror Wars. I think the website's still out there somewhere. So if you want to read some really, really, really crappy and tons of typos fan fiction, go look up Star Trek Mirror Wars. And it really got me into wanting to be into television and cinema and film and entertainment, because I felt that those were the spaces that could show humanity at its best. I didn't go into entertainment because, and I don't think some people do. I mean, a lot of people do. I didn't come into entertainment to want to be rich or famous, or because I had this big ego thing of wanting to be super well known or be the best. I wanted to get into entertainment because I thought I could inspire people, could show us that humanity is better, and show what humanity can be. And I'm not saying I only write positive, happy things. In fact, most of the things I do tend to be sort of darker science fiction, and express sort of the darker sides of humanity. And I enjoy a lot of those TV shows as well. But Star Trek was the thing that really pushed me to want to be in this space. And so, on a personal level, I understand why I've been getting back into Star Trek, because recently, having moved out to LA and having been out here for a little over a year now, I've been experiencing some regret and sadness about choosing this field, about feeling uninspired. And I don't want to get too much into the specifics of it right now. I definitely will probably do an episode on it. But I've been feeling uninspired and unmotivated to be in this space, to try and figure out why did I even get into entertainment and any of this. If what I wanted to do was to make the world a better place, why did I do this? How do I even do this in this such cutthroat, self-centered industry? Is there a place for a person who wants to be selfless? Nothing, I'm an arbiter of selflessness, but it's sort of the general trend of what I feel I want to do things for others and to inspire others, rather than try and make myself rich or put my name on things. And so going back to Star Trek has started to remind me of why I got into this industry, and to help me push through and help me feel inspired again, saying that no, this is why I'm here, this is why I want to do this. And the second thing that I think I've really been getting into Star Trek is just sort of the state of the world in general. And again, I sort of just went on and talked about why I think Star Trek is important and why it was important to me, but think about it though. How many positive science fiction shows are there, especially nowadays? In recent memory, I can only think of two that spring to my mind that I watched personally. It was the Stargate series. I think had a general positive outlook on things outside of Stargate Universe, which I liked, but was definitely not a positive outlook show. But Stargate SG-1, and then for the most part Stargate Atlantis, though it did trend a little bit darker. Those two shows are very positive about their outlook on humanity and what we can do, and we're here to be explorers, and that human positivity is the important thing. And then the only other show that I even can think of that's still on the air right now is Supergirl. Supergirl, strangely enough, is a very positive show with a very positive outlook on life, and just things in general, that we can be better than what we think we are. That what we think we are is actually falling short of the mark of what we actually are capable of. And that's a feeling that I really kind of like. And Supergirl's the only show that I really can think of that I watch right now that has that message. Cause I mean, like, think about all the big shows today, like Westworld or Breaking Bad or Game of Thrones. Great shows, extremely well written. I personally love them to death, but they don't exactly necessarily have the most positive outlook on humanity and where we're going and what we mean inherently. So I think looking at the state of the world, things like Donald Trump and things like that, it's nice to think that, again, what humans are deep down is caring and compassionate, not full of hate. That we are caring and kind people, and that's what I think Star Trek is important. It's why I'm really excited for Star Trek Discovery later this year, and I hope it's carries on that message and isn't just going to be succumbing to what media is in general. Like, I don't mind it being sort of a more serialized show. I don't mind it being more of a deeper show in that sense. But I do want it to be positive. I do want it to have a positive outlook on things. And this is, again, coming from someone who thinks Deep Space Nine is the best Star Trek show, best written Star Trek show. But it's probably the worst Star Trek show because it had the most sort of depressing outlook on the world. But even then, I think Deep Space Nine was fairly positive in the end. So yeah, that's why I think Star Trek is really important nowadays, and really important to... It just is a really important message that I really think we need to hear. And maybe one day I'll regale you guys on what I want. My dream job would be to be an executive producer on a Star Trek show, and I already know exactly the concept I would have for my Star Trek show. But that is a story for another day. So yeah, thank you for joining me on Topic 2.